Hello, this is Yucca from the java.org. This is part 10 of my series of tutorials showing you my Java development environment and centered around VirtualBox. Now, in my previous tutorials I've showed you everything from setting up your Java development environment on a host system. For me that is Windows 7 Ultimate, and I've showed you how you can install through means of scripts which I've created on my website. Things like NetBeans, Oracle JDK and IntelliJ IDEA onto a Linux system. Now for part 10 here I'm just going to sort of recap everything that I've done, and I'm going to go a bit more in depth on how two systems benefit us as opposed to having one system. Now the idea of this development environment is that we essentially want our host and our guest to work together and not against each other. Obviously if we wanted to just develop on Windows, then we wouldn't need a technology like VirtualBox to install Linux on, but now that we have VirtualBox available to us, we can go into some of the benefits of having these two systems working together. Now firstly, from the Windows perspective, or as my host system, I have Windows Virtual PC, which allows me to run XP mode applications, and this includes Internet Explorer 6, 7 and 8. Now you have to set up a virtual PC for each of these browsers, and as a web developer this allows me to test Internet Explorer 6, 7 and 8, which are still widely in use today. And additionally, with Windows I obviously get the ability, should I wish to use Photoshop, I could use Photoshop, and I get to use a proprietary video recording software like Camtasia, which is not available on systems like Linux. From the Linux side of things, I can do away with tools like FileZilla and PuTTY, because Linux comes with a terminal which has built-in support for file transfer protocol and the secure shell client. When it comes to writing scripts, I'm also more familiar with bash scripting, and therefore VirtualBox allows me to run bash scripts and to write bash scripts, and I can use these bash scripts, as I'll demonstrate in this tutorial, to benefit my host system even though I run them in Linux. And I do this through means of the shared folder feature. Now if I look at my host system here, I have additional tools here which are not available, as I've discussed, to my Linux systems. Now one of them obviously is the Safari web browser, which is available to Windows system. So just to give an example, as a web developer obviously you want to test your CSS layout in as many browsers as possible, and if I go to my website here, it looks pretty standard with how I expect it to look like in Safari web browser. And obviously I have other browsers like Chromium, Opera and the Internet Explorer 6, 7 and 8 here. Now I'm not going to launch these because you can't have more than one virtualization software running at the same time, and I have VirtualBox running at the moment. Now one way in which our host system can benefit our guest system is if we have a client like Tortoise SVN, which we use to create subversion repositories. We can use Tortoise SVN to create subversion repositories for our Linux guest systems in VirtualBox, as I'll demonstrate to you. So for this tutorial I'm going to create a new directory here, and I'm going to name it subversion, and within that directory I'm going to create a new directory, call it OpenSeas, and this will contain my subversion repository for OpenSeas. And within this directory I'll create a new directory called SVN in capitals, and I'll right click it, and from the context menu choose create repository here with the Tortoise SVN menu item, and just select OK. And this is the structure of a SVN repository. Now obviously if you want a subversion client on your Linux system, this won't be sufficient enough, but it will serve your needs. If you're using an IDE, for example, like NetBeans or IntelliJ, you'll be able to use the subversion repository which we've created with Tortoise SVN in Windows, and you'll simply be able to share the subversion to your Linux system. And getting back to how we can use our guest system to benefit our host system, I'm going to demonstrate to you that we can use Linux to install or unpack software into our Windows directories. An example of this, if you haven't seen my previous tutorials, I have Maven installed here. Note that I have Maven version 3 update 4, and if I run the Maven version command here from the command prompt, you'll see that Maven is correctly installed. And should I delete Maven from here, and bear in mind that obviously I still have my environment variables set for the Maven installation, I'll show you that Maven is no longer installed on my system, but I can simply use a script in Linux if I mount this Maven directory to the Linux system to unpack and download and install Maven into this directory, as I'll demonstrate. Now I've run the Maven command here, and you see that Maven is no longer installed. Now just keep this in mind for this tutorial. And for this tutorial today, I've also set up a brand new OpenSeas installation here, and I'm going to share various directories to the OpenSeas. And just to go through the directories I'm going to share this empty Maven directory. I'm going to share the subversion repository which we created in Windows, and I'm going to share my IntelliJ projects directory which contains 3 IntelliJ projects, and I'm going to share my NetBeans projects directory which contains a single Maven project 1 project. So just bear these in mind. Now in my OpenSeas, which I've installed for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to set up shared folders under the devices option in my guest. Click on the blue icon here, go to the drop down list and select other, and pick the files that I want shared from my host to my guest. This includes my local M2 configuration directory which contains my Maven settings file as well as my local Maven repository. So I'll set that as a shared folder, and I'll make it permanent so that I don't repeat this process each time. And I'll leave it unchecked for read only, which means that I'll be able to read and write to this directory on my Linux guest. And I'm going to do the same for my NetBeans projects directory and my IntelliJ projects directory, and just go to the NetBeans projects here, and so just bear with me while I set these up. And I'll also share my Maven directory. Remember, it's empty. And my subversion repository, which is under subversion OpenSeas. So now I've set up 5 directories to be shared with full access. In other words, the guest system can read and write to these directories. The .m2 directory, IntelliJ projects directory, my Maven directory, my NetBeans projects directory, and the Subversion repository. These are all shared to the OpenSeas guest. Now the nice thing about OpenSeas is that you don't have to install guest editions for OpenSeas, and just to verify with you that this is a new installation here, I'm just going to add the terminal here to the toolbar at the bottom, and I'm going to list the contents of my home directory, and you'll see it's pretty much what you expect in your home directory, except it doesn't have NetBeans projects and IDEA projects and the Subversion repository. And I'm also going to run the following command with you, just to verify that I have an IST open Java version installed. Now obviously as a Java developer you probably want the Oracle JDK, and I'm going to show you now how we can get the Oracle JDK and Maven in addition to NetBeans and IntelliJ installed, along with all our projects from our host system and the Subversion repository. Now before I get the script from our site, I'm also going to show you that Linux provides us, if you're a web developer, with browsers which are not available to Windows or Macintosh systems, and one of these is Conqueror. So if you want to test your CSS for the whole browser market, then Conqueror, you should test your web applications in things like Conqueror as well. So if I go to my site here and just give you an impression of what my site looks like in Conqueror, and you'll see here it looks pretty standard with how it did in the Safari browser and with how it looks like in Firefox and that. Now I'm going to use the Firefox client in the OpenSeas that I installed, and I'm going to go to my site and I'm going to download a script there which is going to download all the things we need to develop with onto our OpenSeas guest. And if you go to my site, thejarbar.org, under the tutorial section, under VirtualBox, at the bottom you'll find a dual dev link. You just click on that, and similar to my previous tutorials, I've got a script here in purple. Just click on the script if you want to download it, or just copy it and create your own script file for it. But going through the script with you, it basically downloads and installs the Oracle JDK, and it copies or symbolically links the bin contents to your user bin directory so that you can run commands from your terminal, commands like Java, Java-C, Java-Doc and so forth. It also downloads and unpacks and installs Maven and NetBeans and IntelliJ IDEA. Now the script will prompt you as well for a script file which you can write script commands to, which are executed at boot time. Now to show you this, I'm going to type in the cat command here, and for OpenSeas the location of this file is etc/etc/rc.d/boot.local. You'll see here that if you look at the file here, the cat output, you'll see that script commands can be written to this file and they'll be executed as your system boots up. And what my script does, if you specify this file in the script, it will write or it will attempt to write mount commands which will mount your NetBeans projects, your Subversion repository, your IntelliJ projects, and your Maven installation from your host to your guest, provided that you have VirtualBox shared folders enabled. Now, as I mentioned, OpenSeas does all of this for you, and if you're using Ubuntu, then obviously you need to install guest editions and shared folders to enable this feature. Now additionally, the script also writes scripts that you can use to unmount and mount your NetBeans projects, your IntelliJ projects, and your Subversion repository from your guest system, should you not wish to have them mounted. And I'll demonstrate this to you. To get the script, simply click on the purple section and select Save to save it, and open a new terminal, or just close your browser in the meantime, and with the bash command, because it's the bash script, in your home directory under downloads, you'll find it under Java Unix, full Java Unix VirtualBox install.sh, and just run the script. And obviously you need to give your password because the script accesses your user directory, and the script is going to download quite a few things now, so I'm just going to pause while it downloads. Okay, so the IntelliJ is Java has been downloaded and installed on my OpenSeas system, and you see here that I'm prompted for the file to write those script commands to, so I'm going to type in /etc/rc.d/boot.local. If you're using a normal Linux system like Ubuntu, you should be able to use the default that I've provided. And because this is OpenSeas, I have to specify the path manually, and as I've done here, and just hit enter, and then the script prompts you for which version of Maven you want. I'm just going to use the default, and which NetBeans you want, and I'm just going to use the default, and which IntelliJ you want, and I'll use the default. And you'll see now that Maven has been downloaded, and I can already show you that our guest system has downloaded and installed and unpacked Maven onto our Windows host system. Remember, this directory was empty, and now we have Maven installed in our Windows system. And obviously, if you didn't have your environment variable set correctly, you'd have to do that before running this command. But because I had the existing Maven settings in my environment variables, you'll see that Maven is ready to be used here on my host system, and I've used my guest system to download and unpack Maven into this Maven directory on my host. If I get back to my OpenSeas guest here, you'll see that NetBeans has downloaded, and I can go through the installer here, just accept the license agreement, click on next, and accept JUnit if you want it, and NetBeans picks up my JDK location because I've provided a Java home environment variable in the script, and just go through the NetBeans installation again. I'm just going to pause while it does this. Okay, so NetBeans is almost finished installing, and I'll just click finish, and then it's to get IntelliJ, and I'll just explain a few things to you while it downloads IntelliJ. As I mentioned through the series of tutorials, if you keep your projects Maven based, then your projects are essentially abstract from integrated development environments. So this allows you to choose and pick your integrated development environment. And for example, if I create a Maven project in NetBeans, I'll simply be able to use that same Maven project in IntelliJ or in Eclipse, based on the fact that it's a Maven based project. And if you're unsure what I'm talking about, then look at my Maven tutorial which I did previously. And all these installations here, the NetBeans installation, the Maven installation, and the Java installation, and so forth, they've copied content, or they've copied the bin contents, or they've symbolically linked them to your user bin directory. Now the script reboots your system, and once it's rebooted, I'm going to show you a few things that have drastically changed on our guest system. Firstly, I'm going to show you that that script file which we wrote to. We wrote mount commands there, so things like our IntelliJ projects and NetBeans projects are going to be auto-mounted as our system starts up now. And if you don't like the feature, then you can use the scripts which I copied to your user local bin, as I'll demonstrate to you. And just wait for the login. So if I go to the terminal now and just wait for everything to start up, you'll see that NetBeans is installed here firstly, and if I list the contents of my home directory, you'll see that I have IntelliJ projects and NetBeans projects directories here, and if I list the contents of NetBeans projects, you'll see that I have that one Maven project which I showed you earlier mounted. Likewise, if I list the contents of my IntelliJ projects, I'll have 3 projects mounted there. And this is because of the commands which I wrote to this file. Now I'm going to cat the output again to the terminal here so that you can see what was written here, and you'll see that I wrote script commands here to this file so that you can automate the process of mounting your NetBeans projects and your IntelliJ projects, as well as your subversion directory as your system starts up. Just going to show you that we also have the subversion repository in our home directory. You see that it's populated with a directory structure of that subversion repository that we created. And if you don't like any of these features, then simply use one of these scripts which are copied to your user local bin directory, like idea unmount. So let's see what happens if we run that script. Idea umount asks you for your password and doesn't give any output, but if I go and list the contents of IntelliJ projects, you'll see that that directory is unmounted and the projects have been unmounted from our guest system. And if I want to mount them again, I'll simply type in the idea mount, and if I list the contents, you'll see well, let's try with the NetBeans projects. NetBeans mount and list the contents of NetBeans projects. You'll see that it's empty, and if I type in the NetBeans mount and if I list the contents now, you'll see that the NetBeans project is back there. Now the other thing to show you is that we have Java configured in our path. So if we type in Java version, you'll see that we have the proprietary JDK installed. If we type in Maven version, we'll see that we have the Maven version 3 update 4 installed on our OpenSeas system. And the best thing of all is if I show you in my user profile directory in Windows. Bear in mind that these are all shared folders from our host to our guest system. Everything that we use to develop with, apart from the JDK on Windows, is located in this one directory. We have IntelliJ projects here, we have subversion repositories here, we have a servers directory which we can use to install servers like Tomcat in. We have IntelliJ projects, and we have the My Documents which contains NetBeans projects, and we have the Maven installation directory which contains our Maven installations. Now we have one directory where we can back up all our development activity, including the virtual machines which you may or may not use for Windows Virtual PC and for your VirtualBox installation as well. Note that here is where I have my VirtualBox disks and so forth. So this makes it extremely easy to back up your development environment, and to pack it up, perhaps you switch computers, then you can simply pack up your development environment and take it with you. And just going to show you that we have NetBeans installed here as well on OpenSeas. You'll see that NetBeans starts there, that verifies that NetBeans is installed, and likewise with IntelliJ Community Edition. And if you don't want the Community Edition, just copy the script file which I showed you and adjust the IC for the IU if you have a proprietary license. And you see here that the Community Edition is installed. And this is part 10 of my series of tutorials showing you my dual Java development environment with VirtualBox. Thank you for watching.